All right. I finally made it to the top of this sand dune from the forest that is 80 feet below me. And from the forest that is 80 feet below me. And now I'm going to take a look around and see what is on top of this dune. Whoa. Oh, you have to see this. It was completely worth the climb. I am on top of the Malel sand dunes. These sand dunes are several hundred yards wide, and it's just a vast land of sand. They refer to it as a dune field. And then way off in the distance, breaking waves of the Pacific Ocean. On the inland side, you have the forest that I walked through in episode 1 at a much lower elevation. You know, climbing that dune has kind of put me in a mood to do some more climbing. And a little ways back there, I saw about a 90-foot dead tree. Yeah, I'm going to try climbing to the very top of it. Well, maybe you didn't believe me when I said I was going to climb to the top of a 90-foot dead tree. Well, here I am, and watch this. Don't worry about me, I'm all right. I could have made it to the top. I was so close. I think the wind blew me off. What? What, you don't believe this is a 90-foot tall tree? Well, I mean, it is. It's dead now, but when it was alive, it was a 90-foot tall tree with a thriving forest down below it. If you've been paying attention in episode 2, you would understand these dunes are continually blowing inland at the rate of about 3 to 10 feet per year, and as they're going, they're burying the forest, including the forest this standing tree was once in, and this dead tree is all that's left. In fact, it's really amazing. You'll walk through this dune and you see all these dead tree tops poking up through the sand. It's called a skeleton forest. It's really a sight. Now, I've talked a lot about how these dunes are moving in at the rate of 3 to 10 feet per year, but I've never talked about the mechanics of exactly how that occurs. And that is a fascinating story. Let me show you. Okay, when you're out here in the dunes, you see these little sand ridges everywhere. And these little sand ridges are kind of the bread and butter of sand dune movement, because that's where most of the movement occurs. Now, these ridges right here, they're perpendicular, which means the wind is coming straight towards me because they form up perpendicular to the wind. Now, to understand how the sand actually moves, you have to think in the terms of each individual grain of sand, because that's how these dunes mostly move, is grain by grain. So what happens? The wind blows and these little sand grains, they don't roll along like you might think, they skip. And there's some interesting mechanics about that, which I won't get into, but they do skip. Think of like a rock that skips across a pond when you throw it. It would kind of look like that. Now, it turns out the average skip distance of each sand grain is about 6 inches. And the average distance between each little sand ridge is 6 inches. Can you guess why? Because what's happening is these sand grains, they skip from ridge top to ridge top to ridge top. When it's windier, it'll be a little bit longer skip than 8 inches, and these little ridges are wider spaced apart. And if it's a more mild breeze, they're a little closer, kind of like they are right now. Right now they're about 4 inches apart. And then they keep skipping along ridge top to little ridge top, and they finally reach kind of the cliff of the active face of the sand dune. And let me show you what happens when you get to that point. Because when they get to that point, their skipping days are over. Let's go. All right, I am now on the active leading edge of the sand dune. They call this the slip face. Now keep in mind, these individual sand grains began at the ocean beach, and they've been spending their days just joyfully skipping from little ridge top to little ridge top, and finally they reach this point. So they do their final skip way over off the top of this leading edge and onto the slope that I'm on now. Now the slope is a lot different than the ridge top. This slope doesn't have the wind action. It's protected from the wind, so they can no longer skip. So here's what happens at that point, and let me see if I can show you with my hands. The top part of the dune, where most of the sand, where all the sand is landing, is building up higher and higher and higher at a steeper angle than the lower slope. And you can guess probably what happens after a certain point it sort of goes out further and then it breaks free, and that upper part of the dune then slides down and cascades its way all the way down the lower dune to the point where it spills out onto the forest floor. And keep in mind, this occurs week after week, month after month, year after year. And it makes a monumental difference to this forest as it goes, a little bit at a time. And you know, it's you know what? I think I need some playtime. Well, I got that out of my system for a while anyway. Hey, while I was rolling around in the dunes, I found this really interesting bone. I think it's from a type of a shorebird, because that sort of looks like a beak. So I thought I'd take a little detour by the Humboldt Coastal Nature Center and talk to one of the Friends of the Dunes naturalists there. Maybe they can help me figure out what it is. Well, that's the end of this three-part series on Malel Dunes. I sure hope it's given you a little taste of how unique and beautiful this place is. And I've only shown you a little tiny slice of it. There's so much more to see out here. Oh, and if this is your first time to Malel, I'd highly recommend you begin your adventure with a stop at the Humboldt Coastal Nature Center, which is staffed by the Friends of the Dune, which is a non-profit organization. And you know, it's worth coming out here just to see the Nature Center. It's very unique. It has a vegetated roof, unusual architecture, and it has a very fascinating history behind it that you can learn in the Nature Center. All the information I presented in these three shows came from the Nature Center, either from some great books I purchased from the bookstore or from the knowledgeable naturalists who staff the center. Well, it's been a lot of fun, and thanks for watching. Oh, and one more thing. Make sure you get out there and experience Humboldt outdoors.